Hey, hello everyone. Welcome to another episode of The Limitless Show. Today we're going to be talking about finding your own voice. So if you don't know how to find your own voice, if you don't even know what that means, this video is definitely for you. I am so excited to introduce you to my new guest, Hayley Lloyd. We met over Instagram. She has some very inspirational things. I'll put all her details in the comments, but I am so grateful for her being here today. She has so much to say within finding your own voice department. But yes, thank you so much, Hayley, for coming on.
No problem. I'm so happy to be here and to actually get to talk to you in person.
I know.
It's really great.
So basically, what I want to start with is, what is your definition of finding your voice? Because it's quite you hear a lot of people say it and you hear a lot of people be like, you need to find your own voice, but what does that even mean? What does it mean to you?
So having your own voice really means knowing who you are. So being able to authentically show up as you in any place, wherever that is. So whether that's on social media, whether that's in a meeting, whether that's in a friendship group, wherever it is, being able to just authentically speak and not have any anxiety around what you're saying, the messages that you want to deliver. You know who you are, you know what your values are, you know what your life purpose is, and you're just able to fluidly have a conversation with people, and you're able to then progress in your life and just go after the things that you want and that you would like to get in the future, because you actually know what they are. And having that voice is the internal compass of everything that makes up you, if that makes sense.
Completely.
Yeah.
This show is all about limitations, and each week I have a new guest and we talk about a limitation in their life. You chose finding your own voice. So what I want to ask you is, how did not having your own voice limit you? What did your life look like when you didn't have a voice, or you didn't know what your voice was?
Yeah, great question. So for me, I was really a shadow of myself. I would not have been able to do this, for example. I was completely crippled by anxiety, and I was hung up on what everyone else thought of me. I didn't know authentically who I was. I was constantly searching for validation, approval, acceptance from everywhere apart from within myself. And it meant that I couldn't speak in front of people. I had trouble in meetings. I had trouble in friendship groups. I had trouble dating. A lot of this happened when I was single, and it made dating incredibly difficult because sober, I couldn't operate like I wanted to operate, and I didn't know really what I was saying. I felt extremely anxious. And I was incredibly preoccupied with everything that everyone else thought and the opinions that they might have, that I'd let it influence my own opinion. And so in the end, my opinions became a mashup of everyone else's opinions, basically. And I was just I would wait for everyone else to give their opinion before I would give mine. I was too scared to do or say anything that might be deemed as unacceptable or undesirable. I wanted to be liked at all costs. So that meant that I'd talk like other people, I'd wear what other people wore. I was like a chameleon. I could fit into any group because I would, just fit myself and my personality to suit what they were doing. I can fit myself and mold myself into those groups, which is on the surface seems like a great skill, but it comes from not knowing who you are and not authentically knowing the values that you have, what's important to you. It was one of those things that I put so much pressure on myself. If I was in a group of any more than 2 people, then my brain would just go completely blank. All words would vacate the premises. That affected my work in meetings, it affected my friendships, relationship. And it actually meant that the only time that sometimes I did feel okay was when I was drinking alcohol, because initially alcohol removes anxiety because it makes you feel a lot freer. And initially when I was doing that, it made me feel more free. So I relied on it a lot. Then I started relying on drugs a lot. And then I ended up getting into this really negative pattern of relying on alcohol and drugs to give me a voice, which then took me down a very strange path where I was completely dependent on that to be able to speak. And before I knew it, I was pretty much completely dependent on them. That's sort of, a coping mechanism that a lot of people use so that they can have the confidence to speak authentically or what they think is authentically, just to be able to use a voice, even if it's not their voice, that can give them that. But it's a really, really dangerous crutch, because it can lead to really, really, really negative patterns, and it can be very self-destructive, which it ended up being for me.
Thank you so much for sharing that, because it takes some guts, and it really takes for you to know who you are to be able to share something like that. And I have no idea what you must have been through, but I know when I go through difficult things, I have to go through it, get over it, and then I can talk about it. So it's good now, and I'm so glad and happy for you that you have found your voice and you know who you are. So we spoke a bit before on Instagram about the reasons why you didn't have a voice, and I actually experienced this as well a lot through secondary school. I love the way that you put that you were a chameleon, because that's what I was. I had friends with the cool people, I was friends with the nerds, I was friends with literally everyone, and I could go and talk to everyone, and I was this kind of chameleon. And the reason why I didn't have a voice was because I was a people pleaser. I wanted everyone to like me. And if someone didn't like me, I would go out of my way to make them like me, because I'm a likable person. And that's what I thought in my head. So I was like this just chameleon of loads of different people, jack of all trades, trying to get to know everyone. But I was wondering, because obviously you spoke that you went to have coaching, and that has obviously helped you understand what your trigger points are. I don't know, did you have a voice when you were younger? I think you said you did.
Yeah, it's a funny thing. When I was younger, I was extremely confident. I am an extrovert. I don't know whether anyone knows the Myers-Briggs personality test, but I'm an ENFP. So naturally, I do have an extroverted personality. And so this was something that was learnt, and it was something that through periods of my life that were kind of traumatic ended up just weaving its way in and rooting. And it basically took root for about 26 years, like the grand scheme of things. And so, yeah, it wasn't something that I had the whole time. And that's why, you know, when I was speaking to coaches and therapists, they were like, this is something that you can overcome, because this is not naturally the kind of person that you are. And I think just hearing that and having that awareness about myself and what I used to be, like talking to my family about how I used to be and when this started happening and everything, was like a big sort of awareness piece of just like, okay, this doesn't have to be like this. Something's happened along the way here to get me to this point.
So for this next part of this kind of interview, I kind of want to get into how to overcome this limitation, how to get your own voice. What did you do to be able to help yourself find your own voice? Obviously, you found a coach that really helped you, but what things did you learn from your coach? What things have you learned on your own to help you overcome this and be the person that you are today?
Yeah, so obviously coaching was a big one. That was sort of like opening Pandora's box and being like, okay, there's some stuff going on here underneath the engine. So that was sort of the first thing. And through that, my coach pointed out that I actually didn't have an opinion on anything. Like, I'd ask him what his opinion was when he asked me for something, and I was like, what do you think? And he'd be like, do you have an opinion? And I was like, no, like I just wouldn't have one. I was also a perfectionist, and I had motivation issues because of that. And so a lot of these things started to come out through coaching. But also through that, I found out what my values were and my life purpose. So I did a lot of this like internal sort of personal development stuff. I found out what my strengths were versus my passions, and how those things are different, and how they don't need to sort of be linked, or you don't need to do the thing that you're good at in order to be satisfied. You can actually do something that you're passionate about that you're not currently good at. So for example, I realized that I've got a job as being a designer, and I've trained for one, for being one for about 8 years, but actually it doesn't light me up. And that was like a real big revelation for me, because I was like, oh, that's why I'm not 100% happy here, because this isn't the thing that lights me up. Actually, what really lights me up is connecting with people and helping people, and, you know, going through all this like personal work. And that's the stuff that like really lights me up. So that was like a really big one. The next thing that was massive for me was implementing a morning practice. So in doing that, that consists of meditation, affirmations, visualization, journaling, and movement. So the journaling really helped me understand myself on like a deeper level. It's basically like a build on from coaching, and it's incredible. Meditation really, really helped to quiet my mind, and it helped to like release thoughts. So classically, anxiety, people that have high anxiety were overthinkers. And so it allows you to just like be aware of what's going on and just like drop a thought if you need to. It's really, really good. Like if you've got like stage fright or social anxiety. So instead of those, you know, thoughts coming in being like, say something, you can just leave that thought and just like be in the present and like say nothing and be okay with that. Or, you know, you can have positive self-talk instead of that negative self-talk. And through meditation, that allowed me to sort of gain that awareness over what was actually going on in my mind. Affirmations and visualizations are brilliant for reinforcing new thoughts and beliefs. So unlearning all the negative stuff that you've built up over the years about not being worthy, not being lovable. And this is where a lot of stuff stemmed from for me, not being worthy of love, not having self-worth, not thinking I was smart enough. And so affirmations and visualizations allow you to start to integrate new thoughts and beliefs into your daily routine. So your mind starts to believe them. You're literally reprogramming your mind in that part, which is great. Movement literally helps release the anxiety from the body. And the one way to sort of get out of your head is to get into your body. So even just going on like a 10-minute run just allows you to sort of like disconnect from all of the stuff that's going on. So if you're having like an anxiety attack or you're really in your head about something, and you just actually doing some movement can be a really, really good way to bring you back into the present moment and stop overthinking. And the reading gives your mind a break. It allows you to digest something new. So I was reading like loads of self-help books, and that's what I still read. So that morning practice I still do, and it's basically rooted in self-care. And it's about putting yourself as a priority and starting to find the worth and the self-love. Because essentially not having your own voice, it all stems from a lack of self-worth and a lack of self-love. Somewhere along the way, you lost that. And that is what it comes down to. And this whole process is about refinding and actually making a relationship with yourself and like starting to love yourself, I didn't love myself at all. In fact, I'd go as far as saying I really dislike myself. I don't want to use the word hate, but like I found myself disgusting at some stages, which is horrible to say about yourself, you know? And so this whole practice is about finding that worth again and finding the value in you and building that sort of relationship with yourself, which is a massive one. And the last thing I did, so I realized I'm sort of like rambling a little bit, is I actually did an improv class, which was like something I've kind of always wanted to do, but that was huge for me. And some of the learnings from that was it reframed how you think about failure. So it, you know, it's actually, failure is actually sort of structured as a really positive thing, and it gives room for growth. It also tells you and teaches you that nothing is perfect, and that's fine, because literally in improv there's no time for anything to be perfect, so you just have to say stuff and let it drop. It forced me to overcome my brain blank, and like it forces you past your fears, and it just gets you to say something, anything, and there's like literally no judgment. And another great rule that I literally live my life by now is like this rule of yes and. And the rule is basically that instead of ever shutting someone down, you say, so even if someone says is a little bit odd, you say yes and you continue it. And what that does is it allows you to start trusting other people to not shut you down. Because when you don't have a voice, you're scared of putting something out there in case someone's going to say something negative to you. That's what a large part of it is. And so that's learning to say yes and being in a safe place to practice that was incredibly empowering, because it meant that you're not being judged. You find the value in everyone's ideas, including your own. And so usually, you know, there are situations where we do shut each other down, and it's just like something that we're sort of brought up to do, and like in like a banter kind of way, like, well, no, but actually this does the opposite. And this actually means that you're being like, you take that anxiety and that judgment away, and it's kindness at its core, and it's really, really beautiful, and it's helped me massively anyway. So I really encourage you guys to try that.
It really opens up conversations as well. Like, I came from a dramatic background, so I've done a lot of improvisation, and it really is trusting yourself that whatever you do, it's right, it's okay. I also love what you said about not having a voice stems from lack of self-love and lack of self-worth. You really need to start figuring out how to love yourself and how to feel worthy. And I know you said that you didn't want to say hate yourself, but I've been in that situation where, and I will say, I hated every aspect of my life. I hated every part of who I was. And you would never say the things to your worst enemies that you say to yourself when you hate yourself. And it's just a horrible feeling. But the way to get over self-hate, and hate in any way, in any form, hate for other people, other races, genders, whatever, is love. You need to start loving more. You need to start loving yourself. You need to start loving other people, and find ways to do that, because there's so many ways to do that. I really want to ask you, because I think if people find this video, they definitely want to know how to, how to find their voice. But what would you say to someone watching this if they are in a position of not having a voice? Is there anything that you would want to say to them, maybe to do with your journey, or how important it is, or how they can do it even though it seems hard? What would you say to someone struggling with not having a voice?
Yeah, definitely. There's probably a list of things that I would like to say, because I obviously see myself in them and I've been through that journey. But I think the main thing is to be kind to yourself, and tell yourself that you love yourself and that you accept yourself. If I could go back and speak to myself, I'd tell her that I loved her and I accepted her, because I never used to say that to myself. So starting to speak to yourself with compassion, like notice your inner dialogue, notice what it sounds like. And as you just said previously, like you wouldn't speak to anyone else how you used to speak to yourself. So that awareness piece, I would say, take notice of that. If you are speaking to yourself in your mind and you wouldn't speak to anyone else like that, then you should not be speaking to yourself like that. You need to speak to yourself with compassion. And the one way to access that is, imagine speaking to a small child. So if you did something, if you, for example, spilled a coffee on yourself, instead of being like, oh, for God's sake, you did it again, you're so stupid, how would you speak to a child? You'd probably be like, it's okay, it's all right, accidents happen. And that is how you create compassion for yourself in your own mind. And that is how you should be speaking to yourself. And that becomes a learned thing that we have to learn to do. And that is what starts to create the love for yourself. But I'd also encourage implementing a morning practice that is centered in love. So especially journaling to understand your triggers, affirmations and meditation, because those are the things that are really going to start to build the self-love, the self-worth. And it is a practice. It takes time. This stuff is not an overnight fix. There's no switch. And so you do need to put in the work. And so creating that new habit where you put self-care as your number one priority, just try it for a month and just see how you feel. Put yourself as a priority for a month. Practice self-care every single morning. Even if it's just one of those things, put yourself as a priority and start to build that relationship with yourself. Start a love affair with yourself. Practice it all day long. Practice self-care every single day and really start to know yourself, like build a relationship. Who are you? Get some journal prompts around self-discovery. What kind of a person are you? What are your values? What kind of opinions do you have? What do you like? What do you dislike? Really simple questions that you probably don't know the answer to. And it's time to spend that time with yourself and actually introspectively get to the root of who you are. And it could take a few months just to figure out everything that you like, your dislikes, and just almost start dating yourself, you know? Yeah, I think those are sort of like the main things. Maybe get a coach as well, to help have that reflection piece on, to reflect back actually what you're saying. I think that's one as well.
Yeah, I keep going back to the kid thought, because there's so many ways that if you think to yourself, because loving yourself isn't just about your mind. Obviously your mind is so important, but it's about loving your body as well. And I always hear things like, don't feed yourself what you wouldn't a child? Like, if you're looking at a meal or your future plans for eating and you think, oh, I wouldn't feed that to my own child, don't feed it to yourself. If you wouldn't say the thoughts in your head to a child, don't say it to yourself. And I also saw this another thing on a podcast recently about children as well. Like, look at everyone else in the world as if they are your child, your own daughter, your own son, and feel that love for them, and that will create more love for you. I definitely don't agree with the quote, and you can say if you disagree. I always see this quote where it says, if you don't love yourself, you can't love anyone else. And I don't agree with that, because I've been at a position where I hated myself, I didn't love myself, but I was still able to love my family and everything like that. But I do agree that when you love yourself, you have so much more to give. You have so much more love to give, and to more people and a wider range. When you love yourself, you're better for everyone else as well, because you're in a better position. You can be there for more people. It makes you a better mother, a better daughter, a better whoever you are to everyone else. I just want to go back to the start, because you said something that really triggered a thought in my head, and I didn't say it, but you said about having a voice is being able to be authentically you. Would you say that it's being unapologetically you as well?
Oh my gosh, yeah, absolutely. Like, if you're a bit weird, you're a bit weird. Like, I know I am. And I used to be terrified of just like showing my personality, because it's potentially not what some of my friends would like. You know, they probably wouldn't like some of my weirder sense of humor. And so I did feel incredibly self-conscious about that. And so, yeah, you're so right. Unapologetically yourself is a brilliant way of putting it, because we shouldn't have to apologize for who we are. We are who we are. And that is beautiful. Like, we should not have to rely on anyone else to affirm who we are. We shouldn't have to apologize for anything that makes us us. Like, there are so many people in this world, and I absolutely guarantee if some people don't like you, that's fine. Not everyone's going to like you, and you shouldn't need to apologize for them not liking you. But there are going to be thousands of other people that will like you and will like everything that you are. And so, yeah, I 100% agree with that. I think that's a really, really good addition to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I just want to thank you so much for being on here. And if Hayley has inspired you, please check out her social media. I'll put all of her details in the description below. But on a final note, is there anything you want to add to finding yourself? Is there any thoughts that have come up in your head, or something that you want to share on a last note?
Yeah. I guess just one more thing is, do things that scare you. So with not knowing your voice, you're often in this state of fear constantly. And so it can mean moving forward is incredibly difficult and sometimes painful. And the thing is with like growth is it is painful and it is debilitating sometimes, but it is just that, it's growth. So push yourself out of your comfort zone and take action. Don't just like sit and like let these feelings consistently rule your life. Like, move forward. Stop thinking that this is just how it has to be, because it doesn't and it shouldn't be. You know, practice using your voice. Practice every single day. Confidence in ourselves comes from practice. And that is the only way that we're going to be able to find our voice more fully, is if you use your voice. Not just with yourself, with your family. Start small. Go to your family, start using your voice, tell them how you're thinking, tell them how you're feeling, but practice. If it's showing up on social media, show up on your Instagram stories, just do it. Like, I dare you just to do it, because just take a risk, take a jump, because honestly, the thought of it is often 10 times worse than the actual action of doing it.
Yeah.
And that's one last piece of advice that I would give people.
I love that. Change is scary, but it gets to a point where, are you scared of living the same life for the rest of your life, rather than taking that jump and making a change? Thank you so much for being here, Hayley. You have given us so many nuggets of information and so many things I think will inspire many people. So thank you so much for watching, everyone. Make sure you tune in next week for another guest on the Limitless Show. And I'm so grateful for all of you watching. And if you've liked this video, make sure you like, subscribe, everything like that, so you can let us know that you have enjoyed it. I will see you next week. Goodbye.